Today I've got a list of my 10 favorite movies from the year 1997 on physical media. So let's rock this. Hey everyone, how you doing? Welcome back. I'm Fuzz. And today I've got another installment of Iconic Years in Film. This is a new series where I highlight some of my personal favorite years in filmmaking history. And for each episode, what I do is I focus on a specific year that I think was particularly impactful, either for me personally or just generally speaking with regard to movie history. And then I offer a list of my 10 favorite movies from that year. Now, keep in mind, as is usually the case with this channel, these are just my own personal favorites from the year. I'm not trying to make some objective list that is comprehensive and representative of everyone's tastes, right? These are just my own personal favorites. For my last episode, I focused on the year 1982. That was my inaugural episode. But this time I want to jump ahead quite a bit to the year 1997. Just a fantastic year for movies. We got so many great films that came out in 1997. So I just had to do a video about it. All right, so let's just get right into this list. Let's dig right in here and see what we have. Okay, so starting off at my number 10, we have an awesome sci-fi film here directed by the great Paul Verhoeven, and I'm talking about Starship Troopers. Love this film. This is one I used to watch all the time back in the late 90s and early 2000s. You know, this one, I say this about a lot of films, about how, I'm always talking about how all these films used to play on cable TV and whatnot. This one was especially like that. I mean, I feel like this thing was always on. Anytime I was channel surfing or looking for something to watch, it seemed quite often that I would just land on this and end up watching it, right? I saw this so many times back in the day. Used to watch it all the time because it was always on, right? It was always on. And so I just had a blast with this one. This stars Casper Van Dien, who, I don't know if I've ever seen him in anything else. I mean, do we know if he's ever done anything else that was worth the shit? I don't know. But this is the only film I ever remember really seeing him in. But, he was solid in it. And you got some other interesting people in here as well. Denise Richards, Jake Busey, Neil Patrick Harris, and the great Michael Ironside, who I always love in pretty much anything he ever shows up in. But this is just a great sci-fi film. As you would expect from Paul Verhoeven, there's some interesting subtext and social commentary underlying, which I've always appreciated about Paul Verhoeven. He's really good at kind of giving the film a nice little satirical edge. So, it's a great movie, and it's even a little bit humorous as well because of that satirical edge that Paul Verhoeven tends to give a lot of his films. So I've always been a big fan of this film, and it's just a lot of fun. So if you've never seen Starship Troopers, this is one I would definitely recommend checking out. And this 4K looks awesome as well. It's a great looking 4K. Easily the best I had ever seen the film look. Of course, prior to picking up this 4K, it had actually been quite a few years since I had seen it, but I've had this for a couple years now, and I've watched this at least several times since I've owned it. And, I just always enjoy returning to this film. It's got a pretty high rewatch value, I think. So yeah, for my number 10, Starship Troopers. Next up for my number 9, we have something that I think has become a bit of a classic action film in the modern era, and I'm talking about Nicolas Cage in Con Air. Just an awesome action staple. I think you can call it an action staple. And this is one we definitely need on 4K as well. A lot of us have talked about that. This is one we're all chomping at the bit to get this one on 4K. So hopefully that's something we eventually see at some point. But you've got a great cast here. Nicolas Cage, John Malkovich, John Cusack, Steve Buscemi is in this. And I feel like there's a couple other people in this too that I'm forgetting. But just a great action film. I've often said that I think the 90s was probably about the best decade for action movies. Of course, we got some great action movies in the 80s as well and beyond the 90s. But when I think of action movies, I tend to think of the 90s. We just got so many great staples, films that went on to become classics, that went on to become staples during that era. And this film is certainly no exception. So yeah, just love Con Air. Great film, classic 90s action. So that is my number 9. Moving right along to my number 8, we have an awesome political thriller here, and I'm talking about Absolute Power. If you've never seen this, this is one you should definitely check out if you like political thrillers. This is a great one. You got Clint Eastwood here, you got Gene Hackman, you got Laura Linney's in this, you got Ed Harris in this, just a great cast, and it's just a really well done film. Essentially, it's about a jewel thief played by Clint Eastwood who witnesses an incident while he's in the process of trying to pull off this heist. And it kind of draws him into the political world, even including the President of the United States, played by Gene Hackman. And there are all these ramifications to this whole event that happens. And I'll just leave it at that. I don't like to get too much into the plot, but that's essentially the premise. It's a really good movie, just an excellent film. And if you're a fan of political thrillers, then you definitely can't go wrong with something like this. So yeah, for my number 8, Absolute Power. Next up for my number 7, we have another awesome 90s action film here, and another Nicolas Cage action film here, and I am talking about Face Off, directed by John Woo. This is a fantastic 90s staple, another 90s staple. You just can't go wrong with something like this. It's a little over the top and kind of out there, but it's so much fun. And, John Woo, he knows what he's doing, right? He makes some great stuff. So, yeah, I was so happy that we got this one released on 4K. And by the way, the 4K does look just awesome. This is a Kino Lorber 4K release. And yeah, fantastic looking 4K. Easily the best this film has ever looked on physical media. So yeah, you got a great cast here. Nicolas Cage, John Travolta, Joan Allen is in this as well. Yeah, I used to watch this one quite a bit back in the day. Always enjoyed this one. I think you can make the case that this film really epitomizes the 90s action movie. When I'm talking about the 90s being the best decade for action, this is one of the films that I think of. It's a good representation of the kind of action movies we got in the 90s, and it's why it's one of my favorite decades for action. But yeah, just an awesome movie. If by some chance you've never seen it and you like kind of over-the-top, off-the-wall action films, then this is one you should definitely consider picking up. The 4K looks amazing, and it's a great cast. So yeah, for my number 7, Face Off. Okay, and for my number 6, we have another classic here that I think made a pretty big splash back in the day when it first came out. I remember seeing it in the theater, and I'm talking about Air Force One. Great cast here. Harrison Ford, Glenn Close. You got Gary Oldman, who just does an amazing job as the bad guy, the villain here. And you got some other people in here too, like William H. Macy. But this is a fantastic looking 4K from Sony. And I love my Steelbook here. I had to get this Steelbook when I saw the art. You got to love that. Look at that. I mean, the back's not quite as cool, but I just love the artwork on the front here. So, a fantastic movie. I love Gary Oldman's performance in this film in particular. He was awesome. He plays this hardcore communist who longs for the glory days of Mother Russia, of the old Soviet Union, right? And that's what he's all about. And yeah, he's quite the threat in this movie, and it's really cool how the whole thing unfolds. I've just always thought this was a fun story, really good film. So if by some chance you've never seen Air Force One and you like political stuff like this, political action, you can't go wrong with something like this. It's just such a great film. So yeah, for my number 6, Air Force One. Moving right along to my number 5, we've got a survival type film here that I've always loved, and I'm talking about The Edge, starring Anthony Hopkins and Alec Baldwin. This is a great film, so much fun. It's about a billionaire that essentially his plane crashes and he gets stranded in the Alaskan wilderness, and has to try and survive and, you know, find his way out on his own. And it's not just him that gets stranded. There's a couple people, but this is just so much fun, and it's got a great little twist in it as well. It's not just about survival. There's some other stuff going on in this film as well. But yeah, I love Anthony Hopkins in this. It's one of my favorite roles that I think I've ever seen him do. Like I said, he plays a billionaire who gets stranded out there, and he's like a really smart billionaire who is well-read and is very sharp. And it's about him using pure brain power to survive and get out of this situation. So I'd call this probably like a survival thriller. Right? If you take the thriller and you combine it with the survival type film, you get a great little combo here, and that is The Edge. This is another one that would play all the time on cable TV in the aftermath of its release. And, you know, I used to land on it quite a few times whenever I was channel surfing. So I've always enjoyed this film, and I've seen it quite a few times. So yeah, for my number 5, The Edge. By the way, if you're enjoying the content on this channel, do me a favor and please consider subscribing to the channel. And if you do, don't forget to activate those notifications as well, so you can always be alerted whenever I'm posting videos that you might be interested in. And also don't forget to like the video as well. It really does help with the algorithm and the channel's visibility on YouTube. Thanks so much for your support. I really appreciate it. All right, moving right along to my number 4 here. This is a film I've talked about quite a bit on the channel, so I won't say too much, but gotta mention it. Event Horizon. Love this film. Awesome sci-fi horror film. You just can't go wrong with this one. I've talked about it quite a bit on the channel. So there's only so much I can really say at this point, but just great cast here. You got Sam Neill, you got Lawrence Fishburne here, some other good people as well. And this is a pretty solid looking 4K, all things considered. This is probably about the best this film ever could look at this point. So yeah, I just love this film. And I'll show you the my steelbook here. I love this steelbook, and I'm a big fan of these printed plastic slipcovers. You know, we got all the hands there, and on the back you can see the Event Horizon, and of course it's just a straight up deal there, right? Very very simple. So all the good stuff is printed on the slip there. So you put that on, and then it takes shape right there, huh? And Event Horizon right on the back there. So yeah, great 4K and some great special features here too. A lot of good stuff on this disc. So if you are a fan of this film, I would highly recommend picking it up on 4K. I don't know. I don't think you can get the Steelbook anymore. You might be able to. I know they did a re-release at one point, I think, but I assume those are long gone now. But they do also have a standard edition on 4K for this as well. So, but yeah, huge fan of Event Horizon. I've always loved this movie. So yeah, Event Horizon for my number 4. For my number 3, we've got my all-time favorite Quentin Tarantino film here, and I am talking about Jackie Brown. I love this movie, and I can't wait to get this one on 4K. Another one I used to watch all the time back in the 90s. I've always loved this film. It's a great little heist, kind of long con type film, more of a con film than a heist film, I think. And, you know, it's a long con, you know, think The Sting, except, you know, for the more modern era. But I've always loved this film. You have just a really top-notch cast here. You got Samuel L. Jackson, you got Robert De Niro, Bridget Fonda is in this, Pam Grier, of course, who I love, Robert Forster, who I absolutely love. In fact, I didn't know anything about Robert Forster until I saw this movie, you know, back in the day, right? Back in the 90s. This was the first movie I had ever seen Robert Forster in for anything, at least I think. And I just became a big fan of Robert Forster after seeing him in this role. I just fell in love with his performance. I loved his character in this movie. So this is one that also has a pretty high rewatch value. I love rewatching this film. Always love returning to this one. So yeah, I can't wait to get it on 4K. I can only imagine how awesome the 4K release is going to look when it eventually comes out. But I don't think we know yet when that's going to be, but it hopefully is going to be fairly soon. So yeah, big fan of Jackie Brown. I know some people think it's kind of weird that I consider this my favorite. A lot of people choose, Pulp Fiction as their favorite Tarantino film. I've just always thought this was the better movie, and I love Pulp Fiction too. But for my money, when we're talking about Quentin Tarantino, this is the one that is my absolute favorite. This is my jam. So yeah, for my number 3, Jackie Brown. Okay, and for my number 2, we have a movie that I saw in the theater when it first came out. I'm talking about Contact. I've always loved this one. You got Jodie Foster here, Matthew McConaughey, Tom Skerritt, William Fichtner, I think, is in this, and or I think that's how you pronounce his name. And there's some other good people in this as well. I'm drawing a blank right at the moment, but this is one that I've always enjoyed. Got a pretty high rewatch value as well, in my view. And, I was pretty blown away by this when I first saw it in the theater back in the day. And yeah, I've always loved coming back to this one and returning to it. So if you've never seen Contact, it's an excellent film. There's actually quite a bit of substance to this film and some great subtext and social commentary underneath as well. And you just can't go wrong with this one. So yeah, for my number 2, Contact. And then finally, for my number 1, we've got another one here that I've talked about quite a bit on this channel because I just love this movie, right? It's an all-time favorite. And I'm talking about The Fifth Element. I've got the awesome Studio Canal 4K here. I've said this before on the channel, but if you don't own this one on 4K yet and you're in the market for buying it on 4K, the UK Studio Canal release, this is the way to go. This blows away the US Sony release. It just looks a lot better than the US release we got for this one. So, and it's a little bit more. It costs a little bit more, but you can get it on Amazon US. And yeah, it's amazing looking. This is, let me put it this way. I consider the Studio Canal 4K release of Fifth Element to be a damn near reference quality disc, right? It's that good. It is just stunning to look at. I can't say the same thing about the US Sony release of the same film. So if you're in the market to get this one, I would definitely recommend getting this version with this artwork. This is the one you want. But yeah, just an awesome cast in this movie. You got Bruce Willis, you got Gary Oldman, you got Ian Holm, you got, of course, Mila Jovovich, and some other people as well, like Chris Tucker. That's one of the things I love about this movie is all the funny little side characters that pop up in this movie. I mean, Chris Tucker is hilarious as Ruby Rod. So yeah, and that's just one of them, right? That's one thing I love about Luc Besson's movies. Luc Besson always has just some fun, quirky little characters that he kind of sprinkles in with his casting, and you just gotta love it. So yeah, I'm a big fan of this film. Never really get sick of watching it. High rewatch value. Used to watch it all the time back in the day, and I still return to it probably about once a year. So I just love this one. So yes, for my number 1, The Fifth Element on 4K. All right, so that about covers my my top 10 list, but of course, as usual, I do have a few quick honorable mentions, just like 3 today. And the first one is a film that I loved so much back in the late 90s. And when this first came out, I was just way into this film. I'm not as into it now as I used to be, but I still had to at least mention it because it had a big impact. I'm talking about Good Will Hunting. I used to watch this all the time. Just stellar performance here from Robin Williams. And of course, this is the film that pretty much introduced the world to Matt Damon and Ben Affleck. And, a lot of us became fans of their work after that. Ben Affleck went on to do Armageddon after this one. And, Matt Damon, of course, went on to do the Bourne Identity and the Bourne movies. So they became big stars after this, but this was a pretty big deal. I believe Ben and Matt wrote this, if I remember correctly. Like, they actually wrote the screenplay, and this was their baby. And it's just an excellent. It's a drama. It's a little different than the type of films I usually discuss on the channel. It's definitely a drama, but it's just a really engaging film and just a really well done film. And I've always really liked this one. I'm not as into the film now as I was back in the 90s, but that's just because my tastes have changed a little bit. But I still love it, and this film still kind of holds a special place in my heart. So Yeah, just an excellent film. So Good Will Hunting for my first honorable mention. And then for my next honorable mention, we got to talk about The Game, David Fincher. This is a great film. I actually just revisited this one earlier this year, a few months ago with my wife. She had never seen this movie, and I was like, oh, we got to watch it. She, if you've never seen it, first time viewing, I mean, I was almost having as much fun watching her reaction to the movie, because I had certainly seen it several times myself, but she had never seen it, so she didn't know, anything about the ending or anything. So it was fun to watch her kind of speculate as to what she thought was going on while she was watching the film. So yeah, just a great film. And if you've never seen it, David Fincher, probably one of my favorite Fincher films, I'd say, next to Fight Club. And of course, you got a great cast here, Michael Douglas and Sean Penn and some other people as well. I've always just really enjoyed this one. It's a great film. So yeah, The Game. And then the last honorable mention is just, I'm putting this in here primarily because it's James Cameron. Right? And of course, I'm talking about Titanic. I mean, the film was huge that year. Now, I'll be the first to admit, this is my least favorite James Cameron film, right? I'm not as into this film as other people are, but it made such a huge impact that year that I had to at least mention it. And, I still haven't even watched my 4K. Since I've got it, because I haven't been in the mood to rewatch Titanic. So I still have to sit down and do that. The thing about Titanic, I don't really care about the love story in the first part of the film. I'm interested in the destruction during the second half of the film and all the craziness, but the love story doesn't really do a whole lot for me. And of course, some of you know that I am definitely no fan of Leonardo DiCaprio, so that's probably has something to do with why I haven't watched my 4K yet. But James Cameron is one of my favorite directors, so I'd be remiss if I didn't at least mention one of his biggest films as one of my honorable mentions. Funny thing about this film is I didn't even see it in the theater when it first came out, but my wife at the time, my first wife, she was into this and her dad was into it, and they went and saw this film so many times in the theater. I think her dad must have seen it like 11 times or something in the theater. I never saw this until it came out on physical media. But it was a huge deal in the theater. I think it's one of the highest grossing movies of all time still to this day. So yeah, I had to include it in the list here. So yeah, for my final honorable mention, Titanic. Okay, so that about wraps it up for my latest edition of Iconic Years in Film, my top 10 movies from the year 1997. Let me know what you think in the comments below. What do you think of my choices here? What are some of your favorite movies from 1997, especially if you've got some favorites that I didn't mention on my list? I'd love to hear about it. I always love chatting with you guys and interacting with you guys, so make sure you leave me some feedback down below. Also, don't forget to like the video and subscribe if you're not already subscribed. Thank you so much for watching today, guys. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you soon.